privilege to be here, and I want to start by expressing my admiration for all of you here today in the Occupy movement, stepping out to take back the public, to assert the common good, and standing in solidarity today with all the Occupy movements around the country, indeed around the world. I really value your dignity and the truth of your experience and your determination and your empathy for each other. I think empathy is very important. And I salute the free kitchen and the free clinic. I've even seen free haircuts. Came down here the other day with my son on one of these lovely fall afternoons that we've had, and there's an elderly man getting his hair cut, and the smiles on the faces of both were really heartwarming. Healthy food for all, healthy health care for all, education for all. Caring for one another is a legitimate basis for economic policy, and that's, I think, part of what we're standing for. Economics began as a branch of moral philosophy, and it's time that we take back that spirit of morality based on a full understanding of ourselves as human beings in connection with one another. Yeah. Why are we here, and what do we stand for? I can't and don't pretend to speak for this movement, but I would offer my interpretation on one word, which is justice, economic justice. Because for too long, for 3 decades at least since the Reagan era, we've witnessed increasing concentration of wealth. 1% owning more than 40% of the assets, which is more than the bottom 95% combined. I mean, that's crazy. In the face of unmet needs, in the face of the need for investment in sustainability, this wealth is being constipated and hoarded.
Give him an enema.
Stagnating, declining incomes for the majority and accelerating inequality. The top 1% now earns more than 25%. That's the highest it's been since the 1920s. And how did the 1920s end? We've hollowed out our manufacturing industries these last decades, and the family jobs that go with them as corporations have moved overseas. And don't just blame it on China. The companies which are manufacturing in China, exporting here, a lot of them are U.S. companies. They've made that choice. They've given tax breaks and tax cuts for the rich and funded these imprudent wars, resulting in huge government deficits, causing us to shrink our public expenditures while the private wealth multiplies. The social net is fraying, the infrastructure needs decline. I'm thinking of my favorite Far Side cartoon right now, where the dinosaur is on the stage and he's talking to a whole group of dinosaurs. He said, "Gentlemen, we have a problem. The glaciers are melting, the climate is warming, and we have brains the size of peas." Now I think it's our hearts that need to grow in order to address these challenges. We've seen the state government spending more on prisons than on higher education. We've seen the burden of financing higher education go to students who end up graduating with onerous loans that now I think need to be forgiven. And healthcare policies captive to the insurance companies and to the pharmaceuticals. Our neighbors to the north pay 40% less for their drugs than we do. Why? Because our government refuses to negotiate on our behalf for the benefit of the people, the better pricing. These are gross misallocations of resources, and they're the result of policy choices. So make no mistake, deregulation in the name of the quote-unquote free market, it's a cover. It's a cover for the rich and the powerful to set the rules that benefit them. The frame should be, what rules of the market do we agree on together so that the function of the market results in the social good? And that means rooting corporations in a charter to serve the public interest. Our financial system, which is the focus today, has been increasingly disconnected from the real economy and in many ways is a destructive force, multiplying claims on wealth, in speculative trading that serves no useful economic or capital formation function, creating financial bubbles and instabilities which destroy savings and assets and undermine our economic security. The robo-signing mortgages, the packaging of mortgage-backed securities built to fail so the folks who sell it can then profit when it defaults. That's wrong. And the financial system as well has been driving the liquidation of natural capital and undermining the very ecological commons on which our life is based that we need to give intact to future generations. Where were the regulators during this process? They were asleep at the wheel or under the thumb of the moneyed interests. So we have to start, as I understand Occupy to do, with the move to amend, to get corporate money out of politics, get the money out of politics, and declare that corporations are not persons, that people Olympia is organizing a teach-in the weekend of the 11th through the 13th. We have some wonderful resource people, including Ricky Ott from Cordova, who was involved in the post-Valdez work and in some of the BP Gulf cleanup community organizing work, teaching on the move to amend. The banks, the hedge funds, the private equity companies, they've become the largest sources of cash, and they've captured both parties. Look at the Clinton era, when the Glass-Steagall Act was repealed, and the government refused to regulate derivatives, the explosion of which has been part of the instability in our crash in our financial system. Journalist Bill Moyers was asked this question and responded to this question in a recent speech. Why occupy Wall Street? And he responded, because Wall Street has occupied America. Woo! Yeah. That's true. Since the fall of 2008, when the crash occurred, when all these financial imbalances finally manifested, and the bubbles burst, the driver behind our economic policy, from Bush into Obama, has been to try to return the system to normal, which for them means returning the banks to profitability and the financial institutions to profitability. Well, they've achieved that with 0.25% money from the Fed, but it has not trickled down to the real economy with these high unemployment rates. The truth is also there is no normal to return to, because we're at a system change point, a phase change point. We need to be about the business of building a sustainable economy that's both just and ecologically sound for the long term. We know this, and now is the time to face that whole constellation of problems. And I believe our solutions have three aspects. One, I mentioned already, the move to amend, to get the money out of politics, and I would add to that free media time for rational political discourse. Second, there's a whole host of international and national and even state economic policies that we can put in play, from the financial transactions tax internationally, to linking creation of money to the funding of public goods. Many means to do that. That includes potentially a state bank here in Washington, where we put the power of banking and the power of money creation into a public purpose, a mission-driven purpose, to the systematic forgiveness and rescheduling of unpayable mortgage debt and student loan debt. And I want to salute the youth. I believe in youth. That's an issue of justice. Youth is truth, so keep your truth meter strong, young people out there. Third, and also I want to mention, Jim, there's teach-ins coming, right? So all these different policies, progressive tax reforms, tax shift, ecological taxes, new public-based financial institutions that will put capital in service to the real economy. A lot of those policy details will be the subject of future teach-ins that a lot of local experts and other local economists and good evergreen professors will be here to help lead. The third type of solution is building our community and our local economy. Our local economy in food, in energy, in healthcare, in services, in housing, and transport, all must grow and be revitalized, and we can put our public policy tools and capital in service to that. In the face of peak resources, in the paradoxes of high unemployment, in the midst of unmet needs, we actually need to shrink our supply chains. Our supply chains are overextended. We need to produce more locally so we are more sustainable. And we can do that through a range of institutions: for-profit, not-for-profit, social business, public business, cooperatives. There's a range of different institutions that can be built. There's an economist term for this. It's called social capital. Social capital and building social capital is part of our solution. And our carrying capacity ecologically will be a function of our caring capacity, how well we can care for each other. We got to bring it back home, produce more locally. This is one that we own, that we can do here. And the good news, and there's lots of good news, the good news is that we have some great organizations and local leadership dedicated to building the local economy. From the folks at Sustainable South Sound, TJ Johnson, Chris Hawkins, Marie Poland, who are developing the local food groups, conducting the Buy Local campaign that you may hear of, and beyond Buy Local is Produce More Local. Enterprise for Equity, Lisa Smith, which is providing business development services for small businesses. Thurston Energy, which is hooked up with Generations Credit Union and OB Credit Union to offer attractive loans for efficiency investments in your homes to save money. Thurston Climate Action, the Transitions Movement, the Co-op Development Center, all these strong institutions, including some of our local financial institutions, Olympia Federal Savings, Heritage Bank, and the credit unions. These institutions root capital in community and will help us build our local economy. So in closing I want to call on the principles of nonviolence in the midst of this, and the power of nonviolence. Gandhi called it satyagraha, the power of truth. I grew up in Bellevue in the Vietnam War era, during the peace movement, the Earth Day, the civil rights movement. Do the ends justify the means? That's a question that's come up in social movement. I would like to offer a no to that, and instead rephrase it and contend that the means become the ends. How we conduct ourselves in this movement will characterize us and build the outcomes that we're seeking to build. We act with integrity, we evolve our local economy, we learn to care for one another, build economic security in relationships as well as in our productive assets. That's a great way forward for us. I'm very proud to be part of
it. So first we're going to march over to Bank of America. And anyone who's closed your accounts are free to speak and tell us why. And also, if you have statements or bank cards, we can rip them up and cut them up. So with that being said, we're also going to chase. So with that being said, does everyone have a sign?
Not yet, but we got lots of them over there that we can hand out as people walk towards Bank of America.
Are we ready to march? Yeah! Are we ready to march?
Yeah!
Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Corporate greed has got to go! Hey, hey!
Ho, ho! Corporate greed has got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Corporate greed has got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Corporate greed has got to go! Hey, hey!
How are you?
I
just noticed.
Corporate greed has got to go, but you know.
I did, yeah. Corporate greed has got to go! Hey, hey!
Yeah.
I'm gonna get one. Corporate deadbeats got to go. Signs right over here, guys. Got to go. Hey,
Do you have any line leaders?
Yeah, there's none of the signs in the back, so we need to wait for
We got sold out!
Banks got bailed out, we got sold out. Banks got bailed out, we got sold out. Banks got bailed out, we got sold out. Sold out. Banks got bailed out. We got sold out. Banks got bailed out. We got sold out. You got it. Banks got bailed out. We got sold out.
Banks got bailed out!
We got sold out.
Banks got bailed out!
We got sold out.
Run over is it right here. You gotta be careful.